Let me ask you this. When did you last go through even a single moment without carrying worry? Not faking it, not smiling to cover the ache, but genuinely feeling light, grounded, and music unburdened. Most of us keep postponing. We wait for life to reach some flawless state before we let ourselves feel happiness. But that flawless state never actually arrives. Buddhism teaches that calm isn't waiting for us somewhere down the road. It shows up when music we stop fleeing, stop trying to grip everything tightly, and come back to what's actually here. If you're exhausted from living trapped in your own head, if you're done with worry and want to feel alive again, then these 7 insights might be exactly what your spirit has been longing for. A foundational truth in Buddhism is that genuine calm and genuine freedom only exist right now, in this instant. It sounds basic, but once it truly sinks in, everything changes. The past is finished. It only lives on in memory. The future hasn't happened yet. It only exists in imagination. But worry ignores all of that. It pulls you into a mental landscape crowded with what-ifs and maybes. It manufactures worst-case outcomes, invents fears from thin air, and convinces you that danger is lurking nearby. And because you keep dwelling on those fears, your body and mind start music responding as though they were real. Even though you're completely fine right now, worrying means you're not actually in the present. You're living inside a future that hasn't come to pass. You're suffering through scenarios that only exist in your imagination. That's how powerful thoughts can be. They can steal the peace that's already sitting right in front of you. But the instant you shift your focus back to what's real, your breath flowing in and out, your feet touching the ground, the sounds surrounding you, something shifts. Your nervous system begins to settle, your chest opens up, and your music thinking slows down. Ketterzl. Because the present isn't merely a concept, it's an actual place, a refuge. It's the only point where life is genuinely unfolding. Everything else is background noise. And here's the key part: worry can't survive when you're genuinely present. It feeds on imagination and dissolves in reality. When you're fully rooted in now, music, there's no space left for fearing what hasn't happened. Your mind might still try to drag you back into anxious thinking. It might murmur, what if things go wrong tomorrow? But you can learn to answer softly, I don't have to solve tomorrow this second. Right now, I'm safe. Right now, I'm breathing, and music, that's enough. With repetition, returning to the present gets easier. It becomes music your anchor, your home base, your safest refuge. And the more often you music come back, the more you realize you were never meant to live in dread of what's ahead. You were always meant to live in the freedom of right now. We frequently mistake it. We assume that accepting something painful means we've given up trying, that we've failed, or that we're surrendering to change. But in Buddhism, music acceptance has nothing to do with resigning yourself to helplessness. It's about releasing the draining need to control every outcome life throws at you. When you constantly push back against what's happening, music, whether it's a loss, a slip-up, a setback, or a surprise obstacle, you build tension within yourself. That tension turns into suffering, not because the circumstance itself is unbearable, but because your mind is battling it so intensely. Acceptance means viewing reality plainly and stating, this is what's occurring right now. Music, it doesn't require you to like it. It doesn't mean you're indifferent. It simply means you stop denying that it's real. You stop spending energy wishing it were different music when, in this moment, it isn't. And once you do that, something loosens inside you. You stop music gripping so hard. You stop fighting the current. And in that release, you can finally breathe again. Consider how much of our mental and emotional anguish stems not from the event itself, but from resisting it. A relationship ends, and rather than mourning, we ask why it happened, how it might have been prevented, whether it could still be salvaged. We replay it over and over music as though hard enough worrying could rewrite history, but it can't. And the more we push against what is, the more we suffer. Acceptance is the point where you stop debating with reality and let yourself experience what you feel without judging it. Shame. That's where healing starts. This doesn't mean you abandon growth or improvement. It means you stop requiring life to align with your plans in music order to find peace. You start to understand that peace isn't a byproduct of things going your way. Music peace is what appears when you stop demanding that things go your way. Acceptance opens up room for music clarity, for thoughtful action, for rest. It releases energy that was tied up in an endless loop of frustration and dread. And within that room, you can keep moving forward, not with anxiety, but with understanding, not with control, but with trust, because you no longer need to defeat life. Music, you just need to move alongside it. The human mind is a remarkably powerful instrument, but it can also be remarkably loud and chaotic. Every day, thousands of thoughts drift through your awareness. Some useful, many repetitive, and far too many rooted in fear, doubt, and insecurity. One of the central teachings in Buddhism is recognizing that you are not identical to your thoughts. This straightforward truth, once fully absorbed, can reshape your inner world. A thought showing up in your mind doesn't make it accurate, and it definitely doesn't earn your complete attention or belief. Worry feeds on thoughts left unexamined. It starts with a single murmur, what if something terrible happens, and suddenly you're chasing that thought down a spiral of imagined disasters. You feel uneasy, unsafe, uncertain, not because anything real is unfolding, but because your mind has convinced you of a story that hasn't materialized. Music, that's the risk of trusting every thought that crosses your mind. It can pull you away from reality and into fear, stress, and mental fatigue. Music, but here's the Buddhist perspective. The mind resembles the sky, and thoughts resemble clouds. Some clouds drift by light and pleasant. Others arrive dark and turbulent. But none of them stay forever, and none of them define the sky itself. The sky stays untouched even as storms pass through it. Similarly, your true self, your awareness, runs far deeper and steadier than the thoughts moving through it. When you start observing your thoughts rather than getting swept up in them, you cultivate music what's called mindfulness. You begin recognizing thoughts for what they truly are, passing mental events, not absolute facts. So when your mind insists you're not good enough, or you can't cope, or everything's falling apart, you, music, don't have to argue or spiral. Instead, you can pause, breathe, and quietly say, this is just a thought, it isn't a fact. I don't have to believe it. Music, that small awareness, can interrupt the chain reaction before it gains momentum. Over time, you start building distance between yourself and your thoughts. You no longer feel victimized by every fear that surfaces. You start to feel liberated, not because you've quieted your mind entirely, but because you've stopped following every story it spins. The more you practice this, the more peace you'll feel. You'll still have thoughts naturally, but they won't hold the same power. You'll be able to notice them, let them drift past, and return to the still center within. That's the function of mindfulness. It trains you to live with awareness rather than reaction. Music, it teaches you to stop being dragged along by your thoughts. And once you master that inner steadiness, worry no longer runs the show. You become grounded, clear-headed, and at ease. Music, not because life has become flawless, but because your mind no longer needs to. Music 5. Impermanence proves your fear can't last forever. One of the most powerful and liberating lessons in Buddhism is the truth of impermanence, the recognition that everything in life is in constant flux. Nothing stays fixed. People change, music emotions transform, circumstances shift. Just like the seasons, every experience, whether pleasant or painful, music eventually fades. Yet when fear or anxiety grips us, it often feels endless. It feels as if it's here to stay, music as if it has swallowed your whole reality. But the truth is, no matter how consuming the fear seems, music it will pass. It always does. Recall the times in your past when you felt lost, anxious, broken-hearted, or unsure. In those moments, music, those emotions might have felt unbearable. But you're still here. You got through it. And now those very experiences exist only as memory. That fact alone reveals something significant. Music feelings, however intense, are temporary. Even the music's sharpest pain has an expiration date. Once you begin viewing emotions this way, especially worry and fear, you stop music merging your identity with them. You stop declaring I am anxious and instead start music recognizing I am experiencing anxiety. And like everything else, it will move on. Forgetting impermanence causes panic. You feel like things will forever remain this difficult, this uncertain, this hard. But remembering it creates distance between you and your pain. You no longer view it as something that defines who you are, but as something temporary passing through that will eventually leave. This isn't just a comforting thought, it's a spiritual truth mirrored throughout nature, music life, and every experience we live. Storms don't linger forever, night always yields to morning, and even the heaviest emotions ease with time. This understanding also lets you approach your feelings with more patience and gentleness. You stop rushing your own healing or forcing yourself into feeling better. Instead, music you learn to sit with discomfort without dreading it. You allow it to move through you like a wave rising, cresting, and eventually receding. You learn to breathe alongside it, not battle it. You trust the process because now you know for certain that you're not permanently stuck. You're simply passing through a temporary rough patch, and that patch, like all others, is already fading. So when worry surfaces and your chest tightens and your mind starts spinning stories of things going wrong, pause. Rest your hand on your heart. Gently remind yourself this is only temporary. It won't last. Music, I've made it through so many before, and I'll get through this too. That simple reminder, spoken with awareness and care, can bring tremendous calm to your inner world. Because once you stop fearing your fear and start trusting the nature of impermanence, you access a kind of inner steadiness that no storm can disturb. One of life's biggest sources of worry stems from the illusion of control, the belief that if we think hard enough, plan far enough ahead, or push long enough, we can make everything unfold exactly as we want. We convince ourselves that staying vigilant will prevent bad things, avoid pain, and keep everyone and everything perfectly arranged. But this belief, though understandable, is exhausting to carry. Because no matter how hard you try, some things will always sit beyond your reach. Other people's decisions, unforeseen events, changing circumstances, and even your own emotions at times. Trying to control everything doesn't create peace. It creates anxiety. It builds a life rooted in fear rather than freedom. Buddhism offers a different approach. It encourages us to act with purpose and wisdom, but without gripping the outcome. This means giving your best music effort in every situation. You show up completely. You devote your energy to what truly matters. You respond with mindfulness, and then you release the rest. You trust that the flow of life will carry you where you're meant to go. Music, even when the path looks nothing like what you pictured. Letting go doesn't mean you stop caring. Music, it means you stop suffering over what was never yours to manage. It isn't weakness, it's maturity. It's strength of a different kind, the kind rooted in knowing that peace matters more than perfection. Think about all the nights you've lain awake, rehashing conversations, agonizing over irreversible decisions, or dreading outcomes that haven't even happened. All that music energy, all that tension, and nothing changed except your own exhaustion. The truth is, the future can't be fully shaped by worrying about it. It's shaped by presence, action, music, and trust. And once you grasp that, you can start loosening your grip. You can music breathe again. You can move through your life more freely. Releasing control also means letting go of the notion that everything must be perfect for things to work out. It means accepting music that mistakes will occur, plans will change, and uncertainty is simply part of the journey. But instead of fighting that reality, you begin making peace with it. You start trusting that life carries its own wisdom, that there's a deeper order beneath what looks like chaos. And that trust becomes your steady point through times of change. You don't need every answer figured out right music now. You don't need to know it all. What you need is to keep returning to yourself and asking music, am I showing up with presence and care? If yes, then let the rest unfold naturally. Give life music space to breathe. Give people room to simply be who they are, and give yourself permission not to have all the answers. The freedom found in letting go isn't the kind that floats above life. It's the kind that roots you deeper into it. It's the kind that lets you show up with more love, more clarity, and more peace. Because your energy is no longer spent trying music to control what was never yours in the first place. Most people carry an inner voice that constantly frets, questions, doubts, and braces for music the worst. It emerges in quiet moments when you're alone, music with your thoughts, or when something uncertain appears on the horizon. It murmurs things like, are you sure you can manage this? Or what if it all falls apart? This voice isn't cruel on purpose. It's not trying to wound you. In truth, it believes it's guarding you. It attempts to prepare you for possible danger, heartache, or letdown. But over time, that same voice turns into a music source of stress and depletion. It keeps you locked in constant alertness, draining your calm and stealing your joy. Buddhism teaches compassion not just toward others, but toward yourself, and especially music toward the parts of you that feel afraid. Rather than battling this inner voice or forcing it into silence, the healthier path is meeting it with kindness and understanding. Just as you'd music soothe a frightened child who doesn't yet understand the world, music, you can begin speaking to your inner self with steady reassurance. You can say, I know you're weird. You can say, I know you're scared. I know you're trying to protect me, but we're okay right now. There's no need to panic. We're just going to breathe and take it one step at a time. When you shift music from judgment to compassion, something powerful transforms within you. That anxious inner voice no longer needs to shout for your attention. Music, it starts to soften, begins to trust you. For many music people, their inner voice is loud not because it's powerful, but because it feels overlooked. When you meet it with kindness instead of frustration, when you sit with your fear rather than fighting it, you make room for peace. You build a relationship with yourself grounded in trust instead of control. This doesn't mean giving in to every fear or letting anxiety steer your life. It simply means learning to stay present with it, like a patient teacher guiding a worried student. You stop asking, why am I like this music, and start saying, it's okay to feel this and I can still move forward. That shift is the essence of Buddhist self-compassion, meeting your inner world with awareness and kindness instead of shame or resistance. And as you keep practicing this, music, the voice that once overwhelmed you, gradually grows quieter. Not because life suddenly changed, but because your relationship with your own mind has healed. You become your own safe haven. You discover music that you don't have to fight yourself to grow. You simply need to support yourself through the process. And that kind of gentleness isn't weakness. It's one of the strongest forms of strength there is. Because when you can sit with your own fear without running from it, you're no longer controlled by it. You become free. Many people spend their entire lives believing happiness is something music they have to earn. They tell themselves, I'll be happy once things calm down, or I'll finally feel joy once everything is sorted out, once I've succeeded, music once every problem is solved. But that moment almost never comes. Music, because the truth is, something will always feel unfinished. Uncertainty will always be present. Imperfections will always exist, and life will keep on shifting. If you wait for everything to be perfect before letting yourself feel joy, you'll be waiting indefinitely. Buddhism gently reminds us that joy isn't something you stumble upon by luck. It's not reserved for calm or fortunate people. It's a daily practice, a deliberate return to the present moment. It's a choice to accept life as it is instead of how you wish it were. Genuine joy isn't loud or theatrical. It doesn't always look music like excitement or celebration. Sometimes joy is simply pausing to notice sunlight warming your skin, listening to wind rustling through trees, sipping tea in silence, or noticing your chest rise and fall with each music breath. These are the quiet doorways through which happiness slips in, not because your life is flawless, but because you finally chose to be present with it. One of the biggest shifts in Buddhist wisdom is realizing you don't need to fix everything in your life to feel at peace. You only need to stop believing happiness must be postponed. You don't need every fear erased before you can smile. You don't need every answer before you can feel calm. You don't need every wound healed before you can laugh. Joy exists right here, in this moment. Music, and when you learn to reach it, even while your life is still messy, something sacred begins to shift. You start reclaiming your power. Practicing joy trains your mind to music. Notice the good even during hard times. It means pausing to feel grateful even when things aren't going your way. It means allowing yourself to soften, enjoy small pleasures, treat yourself gently, and appreciate the moments that bring you peace. Over time, this becomes a way of life, and the worry that once felt constant and heavy starts to fade. Music, not because you forced it away, but because your mind has learned a new way to focus, a new way to see. You start to understand that life doesn't need to be perfect to be beautiful, that you don't need to solve every problem to feel love in your heart, and that sometimes the deepest music joy is simply being here, alive, aware, and open to whatever this moment brings. When you practice joy in this simple, quiet, daily way, you realize happiness was never far away at all. It was only waiting for you to stop chasing it and start noticing it. And in that noticing, you begin living not from fear or control, but from gratitude.